Welcome to Stoughton Media Access Corporation's Hometown Business Show. My name is Steve Kelley, I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure and the privilege of bringing to you Fred and Nadine from the Fred and Nadine team, a Keller Williams Realty affiliate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much
And
for
Steve.
having us.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for the viewers to find out how the important things about buying real estate. I think earlier when we talked off set, Nadine, you told me this could be the most major investment of a person's life, and it's really important. So could you talk to me and kind of share with the audience like how important that is and why they should go with a professional realtor like yourselves?
Sure, yeah. I think experience is crucial in this field because when you're going through the process, it can be emotional, so you have to have somebody who can help with the emotions while all this is going on. Then you also need to be a strong negotiator as a realtor. So you're working with an experienced realtor that's a strong negotiator because much of the time your home is your single largest investment. So I mean, do you really want to trust it to a rookie? So those are key items. And then on top of that, very, very key is keeping on top of all the changes in the industry. We recently just had one on October 3rd that really affects the lending industry, but it does affect the real estate industry for us to make sure we do the best for our clients in view of this new law that's going into effect.
From what I understand, this affects how you do the sheet that does the reconciliation? Is that the biggest change?
It used to be called the HUD. I'm not even sure what they're calling it. Do you know what they're calling it now? It's a closing disclosure something or other.
Okay.
But yes, it does affect that, and there's timing issues there. And if the timing issues aren't met properly, it starts the process over again. So it could delay a closing as long as a week if you don't do what you need to do properly in the right time and advise your clients what they need to do.
I love what you said about it being an emotional experience. Now,
yes.
My son is trying to buy a house right now, and he put an offer in, and they were so disappointed when somebody went in. He came within $5,000 of the asking price, and someone came in and went full price. And you could see like almost tears in their eyes. His girlfriend and himself were like, they couldn't believe that happened. So, Fred, first of all, you've been in business for how many years?
34.
34 years, that's incredible. And you used to compete with Nadine.
That's right.
And you finally brought her over to your side.
Exactly.
So, like sharing from these years of experience, what about the emotional side?
Well, as Nadine said, it's a highly emotionally charged experience. When someone is about to buy a home, they don't know how emotional it is. Or if they go to sell the home, the same thing, because they have deep attachments, emotional attachments to the experience, raising the kids in the house, and all of the memories that they have. And so we're charged with allowing them to proceed with as little interruption in their lives as possible. Because typically people are working full-time, they have activities for the kids after school, they've got kids' homework, they've got all these other ancillary things that are all part and parcel of the problem of moving forward, and we're charged with that. So our job is to mitigate that in such a way that it's a pleasurable experience.
That's a tough bill to fill, isn't
Absolutely.
it? To make it pleasurable to, if you're selling a home, you're breaking like a little bit of your heart, right, with that?
Truly.
A little bit like this, you always, like you might have, as a woman, you might have arranged the kitchen just so. As a man, you might have your tools in one spot and you've set up a rack and you're gonna let all that go, right?
Yeah.
So.
And the memories from the kids too. You know, all those things are part and parcel of this amazing experience of home ownership, which is really, I mean, you own a piece of what is the only real thing in America, which is the land. I own a piece of real estate. That is what's real. It's the only thing. So we build a house in it, we put furniture in, all these things. And then of course you develop all the memories. So when somebody moves on, they move on because it's time to move on. The kids are getting bigger, which shrinks the house, and you can't even begin to believe that until you see it, because when you buy, your kids are little squirts. Next thing you know, you're going, God, why does this place feel so small? And then they've got things, and then their friends come over, and next thing you know, everything sort of shrinks. And they'll come to us in generally 5 to 6 years after they buy and go, we need a bigger place. And then the other side of it too happens, which is when they come to us after the kids are off to college and then eventually are out on their own, and they go, it's too big for us. We have too much space. We go from the bedroom to the living room to the kitchen, and that's all we use. We need to move down. So it's time, and that's the cycle of real estate. So, and we're charged with that, and we love doing it.
All right, so Nadine, along the lines of that cycle, a lot has changed in the last few years with how a broker can transact business. Speak to the audience, if you would, a little bit about this distinction that's now in play between a buyer's broker and a seller's broker, if you would.
Well, as a seller's broker, a seller's agent, you're working directly for the seller, and your fiduciary is to the seller. That means you need to do the best possible for the seller, and the seller hires you. Now you have buyer agents, so it's the same thing on the flip side. So a buyer hires you as a buyer agent. You need to do all the research, you need to protect the buyer and be on the buyer's side all the way through.
So back in the day, though, you didn't have to worry about that now, right?
Right.
So is that more from a broker's perspective? Like, do you have to worry more than the customer does about this? Or, you know, how does that play? Maybe you could step in on that, Fred.
Sure, I'm happy to. What they decided to do a number of years ago was to be sure that the buyers were as protected as the sellers were. So what they did is they created what was called buyer agency, which Nadine and I do, as well as seller agency. So we essentially either represent a seller or we represent a buyer. So when a buyer is coming out and they're working with us, once we find a home that we like, our job is to do the research, do the analysis for them, and to negotiate on behalf of them to get them the best value at the least price possible. On the other hand, when we represent a seller, our job is to get them the highest price possible. And what we end up doing is, when we represent the buyer, obviously we negotiate, and Nadine and I have been doing this for a very long period of time, which frankly, this is a negotiating business, and our ability to negotiate on behalf of our clients is why people continue to work with us and why we get majority of our business is referred to us by people who have worked with us in the past.
So Nadine, you're sort of a little bit more behind the scenes, even though you take listings, but you do a lot of the work behind the scenes. How do you come to a value? For instance, so somebody coming to you saying, I'd like you to list my house. What is the process to coming to a valuation, if you would?
Great question, and a very important question. There are certain things that we look at. There are really 4 things we look at. We look at current properties currently listed. Those are going to be your competition, because what we need to do is make you the best value in that however many properties are on the market that are comparable. Comparable means, you know, similar size, similar style, similar location, amenities, that type of thing.
Number of bedrooms, things
yeah,
like that?
bedrooms, bathrooms, square foot, that type of thing. So that's the first section, is we look at what is going to be your competition. That's current listings. Then we take a look at what has actually sold, because you see, that's the litmus test of it. That's what banks look at to decide and determine whether or not they're going to make the loan. So that's key. We take a look at properties that have sold that are similar to yours in similar location, size, and all of that. And that's really the biggest determining factor of what yours is going to be at market value. And then we also look at pending sales. That's homes that have gone under agreement. We have a buyer and a seller have agreed on a price. They were at this price when they agreed on, but we don't know if it's sold at that price. So you take a look at market days. Has it been on the market like 6, 7, 8 days when it's sold? Then it probably sold at that price. If it's been on 60 days or so, it probably didn't sell at that price. We won't know until it actually sells and closes, which is the sold. And then the last thing where you don't want to be is in the expireds, because that means it's too high. That's the reason properties don't sell and become expired, is you've just priced them too high. So you've just taken yourself out of the market. And truly, typically, the longer a home is on the market, the less you're going to get for it. And that's just been borne out by all sorts of studies that have been done. So really, to do it well, you need to have somebody who knows what they're doing, get the value up front properly, and get it done.
Fred, maybe you could talk to me about technology, because technology has shifted your, or even moved forward or changed a lot what a broker can do. Maybe you can share, like, how is technology playing in brokerage right now?
Well, thank you for asking me that, but I'm going to defer to my bride because she handles
I've
the
been
technology
smiling.
arm of our business. No, that's interesting you should say that. Yeah, Nadine actually
My
heads
apologies,
that
I went the wrong
part of
way.
our department. No, please, and let me turn it over to her.
Okay.
It's interesting, just to digress a small moment. Fred and I are a team, but we actually have an organizational chart for our company, for the Fred and Nadine team. He has certain things he needs to do that are his responsibility.
It's not technology. I
It's
learned that today.
Not technology. Please no.
Can we go to financing with him?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right. That's where we're going to go.
Him.
So talk to me about
me.
technology.
Technology moves at such an incredibly rapid rate. It is mind-blowing. It just makes your head spin. What we do is we use technology to leverage what we, like to do follow. For example, we have an assistant. We have a couple of assistants. And our assistants, through our systems that I've created, keep the transaction on target. And that's all done through technology, because when you're dealing with, 10 sales at one time, how are you going to remember when the mortgage commitment is due, when the purchase and sale needs to be signed, all of that. So I've created systems through technology so nothing falls, and our assistant follows up on those systems. So that's from an internal point. From an external point, we all have apps. We all have cell phones, and most people are using their cell phone way more than their computers. So, like, we have an app that I could text you right now, and you'll get it in a second, and you can actually search for homes. And it's also GPS enabled. So if you go to it and you're driving around, the homes in the area will just come scrolling on, and you can click on them for more information.
Wow.
But you shouldn't do that while you're driving, okay?
Pull over and see what homes in the area.
That's right, yes.
So let's assume that we've negotiated some of the technology and we have a reasonable offer that gets accepted. Fred, how is it that a person would go about getting financing? So someone very new to the home buying is scratching their head saying, okay, I'm halfway there, but who's going to lend me money and why?
Sure.
So kind of just run that, if you would.
Sure. Essentially, when somebody decides that they want to become a home buyer, the very first thing that Nadine and I encourage them to do is to sit with a lender to get what's called pre-approved for their mortgage, which means that they get a letter saying they've run a hard credit, they've run verifications of income, assets, employment, so that they have a letter that says, I'm qualified for this amount of money, I'm pre-approved for it, and all of these verifications have already been done.
So are they the same pre-approval and pre-qualification?
Well, one is, technically they probably could be, but they call them a pre-approval letter because some of those things, like if you said to somebody, you sat down with a lender, and you can do this at any one of the local organizations here. You could go to Stoughton Cooperative, you could go to Randolph Savings Bank, you could go to any of the banks, and they all have lending departments. And you'd sit with somebody, and they would ask you a series of questions. If they wanted to take it to the next step, they would ask you to fill out a permission to run a credit check, and they would run what's called a hard credit versus a soft credit. One is very detailed because that's what the banks are going to do when it comes time for the mortgage. So essentially, you want to make sure that you've got all of those things done. Therefore, when we go to present an offer on behalf of our buyer, we want that offer to speak volumes because they're already pre-approved. Versus the person that goes, yeah, I have a pre-qualification letter, and have you had verifications of income assets? No, we just talked to the bank. Well, that's different than the person that's done all of that. It allows them to leverage themselves better and have a better shot of getting it.
Okay. And if I could interrupt 1 second here, one key point, when we get an offer, and I tell my sellers this all the time, I say, we get an offer on your house, you're not my first call. My first call is to the lender because I want to make sure that what's written in that letter is actually the case, because they'll say, oh, you're pre-approved for XYZ. Then I want to make certain and hear from the lender's lips, yes, we've done a hard copy. Yes, we've done employment verification, asset verification, all of that. Because if that's not the case, then is it really worth the paper it's written on? So we always check that out before we even present an offer. So the seller is not our first call. Our first call is to the lender.
So we have the Ronald Reagan in you, which is trust but verify?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always verify with a smile.
Let me just shift gears a little bit, Fred, and talk to me about contingencies. For instance, when you're buying a property, you're scared that the roof might be bad, or you're scared that the heating system isn't good.
Sure.
So what about that? And then on the flip side, how do you engage people that you're trying to sell their house for them in terms of what they should fix up and do?
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually is a kind of a multifaceted answer. And the first part of it is this. When somebody goes to purchase a property, it's going to be subject to a series of things. And the two primary contingencies are going to be home inspections and mortgage financing. The mortgage financing we always be sure of in advance. However, when we bring a buyer into a home and we represent the buyer, we encourage them to have a full inspection, which would include any inspections that he or she wants, which would include things like a home inspection top to bottom. It's like a physical exam on the house. In addition, we want them to get verification that there's no termite or carpenter ant infestation. We also want them to get a radon test, which is an odorless, colorless gas that, if it's above a certain level in a home, has the potential to cause lung cancer. We want to verify that this home is a safe place, and we encourage our people to get those inspectors. We also have a series of inspectors. If somebody says, I don't even know who to call, we have a series of well-trained, excellent inspectors that we would refer them to, and then they can choose one of four. Okay, as an example.
Before we go on, let me interrupt. Did you bring some photos and other things that we wanted to share? I don't know if are there more camera shots?
I believe there are.
Yeah. So first of all, it's the Fred and Nadine team at 574 Washington Street, Southeastern Mass. That's Fred Yaitanes and Nadine Israel. 781-341-8330. And the email's sold@fredandnadine.com. Facebook.com, the Fred and Nadine team. So if you did want to contact them, I'm sure, and I'll test that now, you'll take any and all questions, right?
Yes.
Whether they're going to list with you or not.
Yes.
If they have a question, that's an opportunity for you to do business and also to share the knowledge that you've gained over 34 years of experience in the trade, right? Which is pretty darn good. And then there are a few extra photos that of typical houses that are these already things you're selling? You can
this
share?
one that you're looking at is currently on the market. It's on Hunt Drive, and it is currently on the market, a lovely house. You've got more photos there. I'm not sure if they're going to show them. Yes, like that's the downstairs family room that they have in that particular house. There's a 15-foot closet, which I would love.
You personally would.
Yeah, over the master bedroom.
Yeah.
That's the master bedroom in that same home. The kitchen, that's only 2 years old, and those are cherry cabinets with granite. It's just a magnificent home, really, truly magnificent. And it backs up to Woods Pond, so you have a view of the pond. You have a home office there that you're looking at.
So this is sort of some great marketing that you're doing,
Yeah.
just vis-a-vis sharing your knowledge, which is great.
Sure.
Here's a question that I hear often, the value of a pool. So as seasoned real estate agents, there's surely a balance there, but how do you weigh in on it?
Basically, when somebody has a pool, it limits the buying public for that property, primarily because about 30% of the market will consider a house with a pool, Steve. So that means that 70% of the potential buyers for that home will not buy that home because they do not want a pool. In terms of value, it really doesn't add any value to your home unless you have a spectacular backyard with a custom freeform pool with outbuildings and other things that could really be, in excess.
Right.
But the typical, 30 by 14 pool or 36 by 18 pool is not going to add significant value to your home. You might like to do it. And frankly, in my previous home, I did have an in-ground pool and my kids loved it. We did it. When we sold the home, it had no value to anybody else. It just happened to be the buyer would buy a home with a pool in it. That's it. So you're definitely limiting your options. It doesn't add value to your home.
Okay, so if you're going to put a pool in, go crazy, make it excessive and beautiful. Otherwise, you're not going to get the money back.
And don't expect to be repaid for it. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Okay.
Which brings up another thing. Sometimes there are things you do to your home that would be quote unquote over improving. But if they make you happy, you can't put a price on that. So you still have to live in your home. So live in your home, enjoy it. A lot of people will call us before they do additions or before they do changes, and they'll say, what do you think? And we go through an analysis and we explain to them, if you put X in, you should get Y back. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes not. But the bottom line is, if it's going to make you happy and you want to do it and you're going to be here a little while, go for it.
Okay. Do you find it hard to represent like two towns, like Easton and Stoughton, or is it just you're okay because your knowledge of all of the various towns is all readily available?
Well, that's a very good question, Steve. And this past year, Nadine and I have sold 55 properties in 21 different cities and towns throughout Eastern Massachusetts.
Wow.
Half of them were in Stoughton, and the other half were all over Eastern Massachusetts. We just closed on a property that we listed in Newton last month. We sold a property in Grafton to a referred buyer from our daughter-in-law. And Grafton is north and west of Worcester. I mean, I don't think we've ever been further out than that. Okay. But they wanted their buyers, their friends in our hands, and we take that responsibility very carefully. We've sold properties everywhere on the South Shore: Plymouth, Falmouth, Hanover, Norwell, Marshfield, Canton, Sharon, all of the local towns, and then going out along 495 and 95, Foxborough, Mansfield, all the way up through Hopkinton. So the bottom line is that half of our business is in Stoughton, which we have a high level of expertise in, of course, because we live here. We're very heavily involved in the town as well, but all over Eastern Massachusetts, which we take very seriously.
And if I could piggyback on that, the reason our ratio of repeat and referral buyers is about 90% is because those people, they know, they trust us, have worked with us, hopefully like us, refer their friends to us because we know what we're doing, we know how to negotiate. So I often say, you can drop me in the middle of Oshkosh, give me a day, I will learn that market out there, but negotiation is the biggest part of it, so that I will learn the market and then I'll be able to negotiate. So take me wherever you want, I'm good.
Walk me through, we only have a few minutes left, and walk me through like your favorite sale that you made or the favorite purchase on behalf of a customer.
Oh my God.
Can you think of like was really special for some reason?
There are so many. You know what happens? We really get attached to our people because we really do mix business with pleasure. We love it. I'll tell you one that I really like. we had a client that had come to us, was building a house. This was several years ago. Building a house. We didn't know her before, so she was selling her house through another agent in another town. And everything was going well, and we were supposed to close on a certain date and so on and so forth. Well, in new construction, didn't exactly happen then.
Yep.
So she had a 2-week period that she was going to be homeless. And we're like, no. You're not going to be homeless. You're moving in with us. And she couldn't believe it. She said, no. She ended up moving in with us for 2 weeks.
Oh,
it was
how nice.
awesome. Yeah.
So that is a great favorite story.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
above and beyond a broker's role, but I think it's terrific.
It's what we do.
That's very good. So, Fred, we're coming to a close, and if you were to say to somebody the 3 most important things that you need to know when you go to buy a house are, and then, take a minute to think about that, what would you say to someone? The 3 most important things.
Well, first of all, I would suggest very strongly that they consult with a very highly productive, good reputation realtor to begin with, because this is generally speaking, the largest investment of a person's life. Therefore, don't just put it to chance. Don't simply go to the referred family member who does this part-time or just got his license, because, go give Joey a break as he needs to get a start in his career. This is too big a responsibility to give to a rookie. So I would say choosing the right realtor is critical. The next thing is I would say carefully consider not to overextend your budget. Sometimes people overspend because they think that, oh my gosh, I want a house like this. And what we found for people who have done that is we go in and they actually don't have a dining room because they can't afford it. They've overextended their purchasing power. Instead of having the right house in the right location, they buy too high. So the key is work within your budget. I think those would be the 2 key things. In terms of a third thing,
I've
Nadine?
got the
Nadine
third.
has a third one.
Yeah,
It's a good
I
team
have
here.
the third.
That's why we're a team.
That's why we're a team. The
Okay.
third one is also, don't just shop the rate when you are looking for a mortgage, because sometimes they're teaser rates, or they're rates that they'll be X and then you get to the closing and they haven't added in, all these other fees, and so all of a sudden the rate is higher and now you're at the closing. What are you going to do? So you really need to go to somebody who's reputable, who you can trust, because it's difficult otherwise. So be careful.
All right, so there's 3 good hints for people going forward. Oh, I'd like to take a minute now to thank Leo McGowan's in the background running the cameras, and Gina Coe is running the show along with Roy Cohen out back. And we also get a lot of help from the staff here as we run the Hometown Business Show. And that's Jeff Pickett is out there, and Mike Hammond has been busy as well. So we want to thank everybody, and we also want to thank the audience for watching the show. And if you have any questions moving forward, Fred and Nadine, more than willing to answer and more than competent with their past experience and abilities. So please do give them a call if you're interested in properties, near or far, as we've just understood.
Absolutely.
So thanks very much for watching the Hometown Business Show. Have a great day.